All right, looks like we're live. Well, welcome everyone. This is modern device management, integrating Macs and iPhones in your business. Um, my name is Brian Sweats, from the Chief Operating Officer of i3 Business Solutions. And I'll say that this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. I am an Apple user myself. I use an iPhone, I use a Mac in business, and compliance and security is extremely important to me. And I know it is for a lot of small business owners, organizations. So we want to talk today about uh, the technology, the processes, the things that we can do to um, ensure that Macs get managed just like any other device on your network. This is a special level of expertise, I think, that i3 Business Solutions brings that a lot of other IT providers don't. So I want to introduce Lee Hill from our team. Lee is a long experience with Macs. I think he worked for Apple at one time, close to 20 years of experience with Macs. And I want to remind everyone that if you hang out till the end of this presentation today, we do have an Amazon gift card drawing to one lucky winner. So I'll get out of the way here, and Lee, would you take it from here?
Thanks for the graceful handoff, Brian. I appreciate it. As Brian said, my name is Lee. I am a senior support engineer here at i3 Business Solutions, former Apple employee in the Apple Care department, which is their user support line. I had the joy of supporting devices for macOS, iOS, their accessibility department. I'm i3's Apple certified Macintosh technician, so I can do hardware repairs on Macs if need be. Which is all to say that, as Brian mentioned, this is something that is near and dear to my heart as, not only a former employee of Apple, but someone who's used Apple computers their entire career and understands that there's some unique hurdles that might have been present in the past to supporting Macs and iOS devices and getting them within the same compliance that we expect from PCs. So without further ado, I'd like to dive in here and we can go over modern device management and how to integrate Macs and iPhones into your business. So if I were to do, we'll say, a virtual show of hands here and ask how many people had iPhones, roughly about half of you are going to raise your hand and say, hey, right now I'm using an iPhone. The other half is going to be Androids. And then, we've got our few stragglers here and there with some other esoteric operating systems on iPhone or on mobile devices. And to a lesser extent, we have Mac OS as well. Mac OS is Apple's desktop operating system. That's what you would see on your MacBook Pros, your Mac Minis, the iMacs, things like that. The numbers fluctuate. Pinning it down, roughly you're going to find that Apple controls between like 15 to 20% of the desktop market share, which is to say that Apple is already in your environment. They're present in your organization, whether you know it or not. Whether it's executives, creatives, there's a long-standing thing about creatives needing to have, Apple devices, whether it be engineers, technicians. It could be a clerk at the, front desk, just taking orders on an iPad. All these devices are present in our ecosystem, and we have to realize that this becomes a function of IT if they are touching our data. And there's a reason why these devices are present. Users will often talk about how much they love their Apple device. They get a consistent experience across their iPhone, their iPad, their desktop. Their data follows them wherever they go. I sign into my iCloud and my phone, and my pictures magically appear on my Mac. They're going to report, hey, they feel fast, they feel reliable. I mean, this is the brand image, right, that Apple has built for itself. But there's a flip side to this. And this is why we here at i3, as IT professionals, also love our Apple devices. They're predictable and consistent. That allows us to manage things more efficiently. We can automate things the same way in macOS and iOS. So if I want your device to do something, making a Mac device and making an iPhone do something to require a passcode, for example, it's fairly similar across both devices. And Apple has built a hardened OS that allows us to layer all of our security offerings on top of it. There's a few pieces that go into what makes Apple security unique. Apple is a single hardware and operating system vendor. Apple makes the chips inside the computer. They make the processor, they make the physical computer itself, and they make the OS that sits on top of that computer. So that allows us to offer more predictable updates. If you think about a PC, for example, Intel may make a driver, HP may make a driver. And when there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, that can make updating devices a little bit unpredictable. Apple also offers what's called Secure Enclave. To sum up Secure Enclave in the best way possible, in the most succinct way, it's a processor that lives inside of every modern Apple device, roughly maybe for the last 8 to 10 years. And this processor isolates all of your keys, your passcodes, your biometrics into itself. So think of it as having a built-in wall safe in your home. If someone gets the keys to your front door, they're still not getting in to your jewels without the combination to that safe. And Apple also designs everything from a zero trust standpoint. Apps are sandboxed in macOS. Everybody can come to the playground and play, but each app has to live inside of its own sandbox. And they can't really talk to each other unless they're given explicit permission. And that permission also applies to your user data and the operating system. So each part of that user data and operating system are stored on separate partitions on your computer. And they don't talk to each other without sort of going through a layer. And that makes sure that we can't corrupt the operating system, ideally with malicious code. And that malicious code, that can come from rogue apps that you download from anywhere. But Apple offers code signing to everybody who wants to install an app on an iOS device. So what we mean by code signing is these devices, or these apps rather, have to go through Apple's vetting process to be installed on your iOS device. And to a lesser extent, on macOS, macOS is a little bit more flexible. We're installing apps from third-party sources. But regardless, an app doesn't get installed on an iPhone or ideally a macOS device if it hasn't gone through Apple's vetting process. That makes sure that your data is safe wherever you store it. Apple offers security, simplicity, and scalability. It's built to be secure, it's built to be simple, and because of the way that things work, we can scale it across multiple devices as your organization grows or changes. Now, we couldn't do this without a robust toolkit. And the great thing about this toolkit is it's modular. So there's parts here that you can pick and choose from. You can use 1, 2, or 3 of the pieces we're about to offer in any configuration, and they're all going to help us manage these Apple devices in the same way that we're expecting with PCs. So the first thing I want to go over is Apple Business Manager. Now, Apple Business Manager is a free solution that's offered by Apple. Anybody can sign up for it. Anybody can use this. It doesn't cost any money, but it allows you to gain light control over your Apple devices. You can do licensing. Let's say everybody gets an iPhone, and because we want our users to be productive, everybody gets Candy Crush installed on their iPhone. Well, I can purchase licensing through Candy Crush through Apple Business Manager and avoid that, oh, Bob wants to install this app on his phone. Well, now I got to give him the company credit card, and turns out he bought 50 jewels for Candy Crush. We can control all the licensing and spending of our apps right in Apple Business Manager. And it also allows us to federate Apple IDs. And we'll touch a little bit more on what it means to federate an Apple ID later, but it is one of the core roles of Apple Business Manager. It also allows us to automatically enroll the devices into the MDM of our choice. We have our recommendations. It doesn't have to be one of these two. We recommend Attitude and Intune. There are certainly other options. And we'll go over what automated device enrollment looks like here in just a moment. And lastly, it allows us to own these devices. We control the domain, right? Whether it's multiple domains, i3bus.com, leehill.com, I can make it so that my domain belongs to me in the eyes of Apple and assign these domains and devices to my users. Now, that covers the basic functionality of just getting your devices started to be under your control. But there's more than that. The next thing that we like to bring in is Entra and Intune. With Entra and Intune, we can enforce compliance and conditional access for Mac OS, iOS, Windows devices, Android as well, but that is not relevant to what we're speaking to today. But that is how we make sure that our data is accessed when we want it to be, how we want it to be, and where we want it to be. We create a unified identity for our employees across all of their devices. So they're not juggling, I've got an Apple login, I've got a Microsoft login, I've got whatever app it may be, I've got a Box login, I've got a Zoom login. We can use Entra to create a single sign-on identity across a myriad of devices. Entra will also allow us some simplified reporting and metrics. We can see what our devices are doing, where they're doing it. It's not extremely granular, but it will definitely give us a bigger picture of how our devices are being used and where our data is being stored. We have a secret weapon that we like to use here at i3, and it's called Adigy. Adigy is our granular management software. This is the nuts and bolts of how we really want to manage our devices. There's other software out there that does this. This is just our preferred one. And relatively, they're all the same. But I'll just speak to Adigy because it's what we know best here. Adigy is how we're going to push and enforce profiles, app updates, scripting, OS updates. So we can control when an app updates, when the operating system updates, what the computer can do as far as passwords, locking the computer, encrypting the contents. Adigy also gives us the unique ability to provide remote support to Mac devices. With Adigy, at the drop of a hat, we can pop into a computer with instant screen sharing sessions, get with the user, and solve problems, and automate remediation for the things that we don't necessarily need to be in front of the computer for. One we have historically done is your hard drive getting full? Okay, if your hard drive's getting full, we can use that to pop off a ticket to our help desk and say, hey, Bob's hard drive is getting full. We have a list of his 10 biggest folders. Here you go, Bob. It might be time to clean up your hard drive because you're going to run out of space soon. Running out of space can cause issues. Adigy also gives us very granular reporting, and we're going to show a little bit of that reporting later. But to sum it up, we can generate and pull reports automatically about operating system versions, whether your devices are encrypted, how many people have logged into the device, when they last logged in. And this allows us to enforce our security policies. And the best part with Adigy is this integrates directly into the aforementioned Apple Business Manager for zero-touch onboarding. That means when a device is purchased, it can be enrolled right into MDM. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple minutes. But keep that in mind as far as the seamless nature of these three together. So when we combine the three, right, we've got Apple Business Manager, and that allows us ownership of our devices. It allows us the automated enrollment I've been talking about. Then we combine Adigy, right? And Adigy is Apple-specific management. It's built for Apple. Its user base is all Apple users. And this gives us very specific policies that we can set for our devices. This is where we get very granular. And then we layer Entra and Intune on top of that for compliance and conditional access. So we've got where we own the device, we've got how we can control the device, and how that device can access our data. And rolling these three together, we take Apple out of that edge case that it used to be. Historically, I've been doing this a while. Historically, the Apple devices were always that edge case of like, oh, there's a guy over here who has a Mac and we don't know what to do with it. We don't know how to control it. We don't know how to keep it safe. And with this combination, we bring it into this ecosystem that we have developed for our PCs that we want to see happen across the board for all of our devices that touch our data. We couldn't do this without coming up with a set of standards here at i3. We're going to standardize a handful of things that we've determined are going to be the most specific ways to harden our data and bolster our security posture. Now, to do that, we have to get the device into management. That's the first thing. But if it's a new device, whether it's purchased directly from Apple, whether it's purchased from a reseller, it could be us, does not have to be us, but could be us. These devices can get automatically enrolled in Apple Business Manager. To explain this, I mentioned it a few times. What that means is Apple knows the serial number of the device you've purchased. When that computer gets powered on for the first time and hits the web, Apple has servers that catch that serial number and see, hey, this device is powered on, it's online, balances it against your Apple Business Manager and says, oh, hey, this device is powered on. This device now belongs to i3. And that pushes our MDM profile right down on the device. So it's locked, it's yours. It instantly is compliant in whatever security goals that we have set from the moment it's powered on and connected online. But not all devices are going to be brand new. Sometimes we may have an existing device. Maybe we have one or two users who insist on using a MacBook and they want to bring it in, and we're a PC house. Well, existing devices, we can add those into our MDM as well. Doesn't necessarily have to even be wiped. Depends on how we want to configure it. But we can just add the profile right into an existing device, whether it's a MacBook, whether it's an iPhone, and do it in a minimally invasive way to preserve the user's data while also achieving the compliance that we're looking for. So we're standardizing how devices follow the policies. It doesn't matter where they come from. They can come from anywhere. But the policies that we apply are going to be standard no matter what. Now, another pressure point, and I know every person who's used an iPhone will attest to this, is Apple IDs. Former Apple employee, I can assure you that a large call driver into Apple's call centers is Apple IDs. We've all had problems with an Apple ID. It's just the nature of the beast. By separating those Apple IDs using Apple Business Manager and pulling away the personal Apple ID that people are going to sign into on their device and going towards a managed Apple ID, we can avoid a lot of the pressure points that people have with their Apple IDs. Since they're federated single sign-on Apple IDs, password resets all of a sudden become easier. We're not having to juggle, well, I have a password for my Apple ID, but I have a password for Microsoft 365. No, password resets become something that we can handle easily in-house because we own these Apple IDs and we control them. And because we control them, this allows us to keep our data solidly in scope. So scope is defined by what's accessing your data, not where, or we'll say rather, who's accessing your data, not who bought the device, where it came from. We may all have our work email, for example, on our iPhone. But do we know everyone who has their work email on their iPhone is doing the most to keep their iPhone secure? If we have devices that are not managed properly, unmanaged, or maybe we have some things in place, but not enough. That creates a really big security risk. If, for example, I don't set an iPhone or a passcode on my iPhone and I leave it sitting here and walk away, anyone can pick up my phone and have access to my authenticators, my work email. It's all right there. So we want to make sure that we take by default a security posture here at i3 to keep everything safe. Things we like to do, we like to enable file vault on every managed Mac. I've got numbers to report on this here in a little bit. File vault is encryption on the hard drive that will encrypt the entire computer, everything on there. Prevents the computer from being erased. If something ever happens to the machine, it gets lost, it gets stolen. Somebody takes my bag out of my car and my computer's in it without my password or the file vault keys, they'll be unable to even erase the computer. And of course, I say this now someone is going to take my bag from my car. I've doomed myself. We can require passcodes and biometrics. That's your Face ID, that's your fingerprint with Touch ID on iOS devices to make sure, once again, if these devices are lost or stolen, that the data is encrypted and is not accessible. Whether it's VPN deployments or certificates you need to access your network data, these can all be pushed down via our MDM software. And lastly, managing apps. We can use our management software to not only contain the data into like a certain app, for example, Outlook, but if need be, we can remove certain apps. So let's say, for example, a termination happens or someone quits. These are real world things that happen every day. If we can sign them out of their devices, right? But that doesn't remove Outlook. They might have a saved email somewhere. So by controlling the apps installed on the phone, we can pull that data off as need be. And all of this leads to real world outcomes. Real world outcomes that we want to be the same as what we see on the Windows devices, the majority of our clients. We want to be able to track your hardware. We want you to know where it is, when you bought it, and what it's doing. We want to enforce encryption across all of your devices. We want to automate the updates for not only the operating system, but your apps as well. We want to standardize the access just like we're expecting with Windows. And something that's unique to us, we want to achieve security parity with Windows. So the EDR software we use, we historically have used the same software on Macs that we do with PCs. So whether it's Sentinel-1, whether it's Huntress, we use the same piece of software on your Mac as we do with PCs. So we have a single plane to see any threats, any security intelligence that we need about your devices that are accessing your corporate data. And most importantly, we want you to be able to see what's going on. With a cybersecurity focus that's so big these days, we want to be able to show reports, whether it's compliance against encryption, what version of OS that you're on, what apps are installed, whether the device is healthy, whether it's throwing up errors. Keeping that corporate data compliant, we can provide evidence-based security so that you know that your devices are meeting the security framework that is a best practice that you have developed or that we have developed in combination with you. To give you an idea of I pulled some numbers last night just to kind of get an idea of, where we're sitting with, clients that we manage. I pulled across 360 managed devices that we have 83% of those have whole disk encryption. So 83% rather of those devices, right, are encrypted with file vault. If anything ever happens to that device, lost, stolen, as I mentioned before, that data is locked and secure. No one's getting into it. No one is erasing the device and making it their own. It is essentially a brick. The next number that I want to go over, this one made me real proud. I know it made Brian real proud as well. Out of 389 devices that we managed, 95% of them have received Apple security updates as of September. So only 5% of our devices have not received security updates that Apple has pushed. And I would gather that probably 5% of those devices, a good handful of them, probably old devices sitting on shelves that somebody doesn't want to quite get rid of yet. So we haven't taken it out of the mix.
Yep.
So
Just
that number
haven't come online lately. Yep.
Could be a little bit lower. And the last one I wanted to show, just as a number I was interested in, is the percentage of devices that we have running version 16.100 of Microsoft Office. The reason I pulled this is Microsoft Office is, we'll say, a big attack vector. I was just curious to pull the data. So we have about 80% of our devices are running a version of Office from August or newer than that. So maybe not ultra relevant, but an interesting thing that I was able to just glean from a few minutes worth of data. So our users, right, they're choosing Apple products and they're choosing it for a reason. Our goal is to make this manageable, to take Apple and just make it part of boring, old, reliable IT. I thank everyone for the time. I'm going to pass it back over to Brian here for just a moment. And
Nice. Well, thank you, Lee. I wanted to mention one thing. I realized that we're IT people, and we love our acronyms. And I think we dropped MDM a few times in there. MDM for mobile device management. And I think that some people can perceive that the name would indicate that that's for managing mobile devices. Well, it's more than that. MDM has become the platform for managing all Apple devices, whether it's a laptop, whether it's an iMac, whether it's a whatever. And you're seeing the same thing coming to Windows as well. So MDM, the name doesn't really do it justice. It means more than that. It's the modern tool that we use for managing these devices. So Lee, thank you so much for your presentation on that. Like I said, this is very near and dear to my heart. I'm an Apple user myself. I have been for many years, and we're seeing them. We see graphic design users. We see C-level executives that want to have Apple devices on the network, and it's our job in IT to ensure that that experience is good for them, that it's a productive experience for them, but also that it's a secure experience for them. So thank you for showing us the tools that we can use to ensure that. Jody, I think you maybe have an announcement. The slides up on page, but do we have a winner today?
We do have a winner, and it is Timothy Skippers today. So congratulations, Timothy. I will get that sent over to your email shortly.
Nice. Congratulations. I want to thank everyone for the time today. I want to remind those who are on the call, if you already work with i3, and this is something that we haven't been doing for you, something that you want to know more about, something you want to engage on, talk to your CSM, reach out to say, well, what can we do now to bring our Macs into the fold, and what new technologies can we use to do that? And if you don't already work with us, look us up, i3businesssolutions.com, reach out. We've got we have customers that completely run Macs, that run nothing but Macs. We have customers that have Macs and Windows. We have all Windows houses as well. So we've been doing this for, well, close to 30 years of managing Macs in businesses and other small organizations. So reach out. We're here to help. Thank you again for your time, and have a good day.